Three, two, one, and guys, we're on. This is SHB Unfiltered, the podcast, that really special podcast, the only podcast currently doing live feeds, Q&A with people who stutter, by people who stutter. We've been up and running now for 40x consecutive days. I'm gonna let Chris tell you what episode we are on. Chris, what's the number?
Episode 47 today. 47.
Ooh, crisp. Just as it sounds just as sweet as the voice that you are bringing through the Rodecaster Pro and your amazing headphones, Chris. I'm loving it. I love the look. Loving the look. You're putting me to shame. Me with my broken headphones.
Hey, it gets the job done, Ruben, man. It gets the job done.
Definitely. So today's, as always, will be trying to entertain you. Actually, that wasn't the point. We were actually trying to inform you, but we've combined that with entertainment nowadays. So for the next hour, I will be your host, Ruben Pillai. Got Christopher Jackson, aka CJ, live from his studio, and we got Ayo Adesanya, who's in a park right now, probably mid-walk, as he usually does. So, guys, please, let's crack on with the official formalities. I'm going to politely ask each of you how your days were, or how they are going, actually. Still a lot to live for today.
I'm in a local park near my house. If you want to have a look, it's nice and bright. I'm sitting next to a tree and I'm just thinking about life and I'm enjoying myself. So it's been a good day. I've been walking for about 4 hours now. I walked about 12 miles. It's going to take me another 7 miles to get back home. So the walk is not quite my personal best, but it's up there.
Chris, you going to beat that? How far did you walk today?
Maybe 20 yards. No, today's been a good day. I've got a few jobs done that I've been putting off for a while, such as getting my mum's car MOT'd. So we got that done today, which was good. But speech-wise, today hasn't been the best day for me, if I'm honest. It hasn't been a good day at all in comparison to others. But we deal with it, we keep going, and we move on. And we're still showing up for the podcast. How's your day been, Ruben?
Without a doubt. We'll come back to that soon, actually. But today, my day's been pretty good. We received some furniture that I ordered last week. So put some of that together and got an evening ahead of assembling flat packs. But really exciting. It's actually really exciting stuff, actually, because I'll take a picture at the end, but one of those packs is very, very special. It's part of a personal project of mine. So I will be sharing that once done. I'm not just playing on my phone, but I just want to read out a message I got from a friend of a friend, but cool acquaintance. Messages: loving the podcast and the awareness you're creating for stammerers. Big respect to you. Real hard being one. So he stutters himself. So I understand it and appreciate your work. Star 100. I thought that was quite cool, and thank you very much. It's always good to get these small messages. If I'm being honest, we don't actually get that many, but 1 or 2 is all we need, really. 1 or 2, and it does kind of make this whole project, this whole daily podcast thing worthwhile, because people are listening to it and are getting moved by it. So thank you very much. I'm gonna look at the Facebook feed. We've got Leo, who's been walking as well. Leo did his PB today and he's got blisters on his feet. TMI. That's good. It isn't too much information. Keep talking about your walks and your blisters. And got some people joining on. We got Bobby Evans. Is he one of your boys, Chris?
Yeah.
Literally asking where you are.
Yeah, Bobby Evans is pretty much a cousin of mine, not blood related, but we're very close. Consider him a cousin. So yeah.
Very, very cool. Thanks for joining, Bobby. And got Callum, Faizan, and a few others on who will be with us for this bumpy ride. So what I'm going to do is, before we get into the meat of the topic, I want each of us just to reflect a bit and start with AO probably. Just give me one kind of highlight, whether it's a positive thing that happened or a message or something good you did, just one highlight of the day.
I have now decided to track what I'm doing in general, what I eat, how much I walk, how much I drink, all my activities in work as well, just to track it so I can actually see and plan the next year or two in front of me and see exactly where I might land, which will be fantastic, I'm sure. So that's the highlight of today. Making a decision.
Thank you for sharing that that goal that he has to keep a log of what he does every day. And CJ?
Positive that's come out of today is that I say we, me and Stephanie, who are working on the business podcast, have decided to enroll in a course, and we are really making progress with the new idea. It's really nice when an idea actually becomes real and you work out a basic strategy, but you know you are going to need that extra support and that extra assistance, and we've managed to find what we feel is the right avenue to take to get that. So that is a good positive that's come out of today.
Cool. Thank you very much, Chris. And to be honest, for me personally, I think that message was the highlight so far, because you can kind of like do this podcast and kind of pick up courses and just achieve a few things that you feel good for. But for me, I don't know, like it strikes a different chord when the stuff you're doing is like impacting someone who isn't even like within your circle. This guy is friend of a friend of a friend. So it does strike a chord when you get that kind of appreciation, and it does reinforce the fact that you are doing something cool and something positive, especially when people may think we aren't doing too much or just sitting around having a chat and not helping out. Two sides of the coin, right? Depends how you see it. So that was me. So lads, you ready for the podcast? The meat of it?
Yep.
The main course, the main event.
Yep, let's go.
Let's hear it.
CJ came up with this cool idea. We thought, we have spoken about jobs before, spoken about interviews and kind of like all that kind of stuff. One thing we wanted to touch upon, which I will let CJ kind of talk through now, is stuttering in the workplace. So Chris, I'm gonna pass over to you. You can kind of like give a brief introduction of how you came up with the idea all by yourself, and you're taking full credit, because I think it's a great topic, and we told people they think it's an amazing topic, and CJ came up with a beautiful idea, and I think CJ is the G now of ideas. podcast ideas. So CJ, tell us about your amazing idea.
Oh, Ruben, I got a slight confession. Only a slight confession, though. AO helped me come up with the idea for today's podcast, which I'm not ashamed to say because it's a group podcast, it's a group effort, and it's a great input by AO. But I do think that stuttering at work is a very important topic. It's an area where people who struggle with their speech have or usually have the most apprehension. Even when they're working on their speech and they've managed to implement it in certain areas of their life and they feel they are making great progress, implementing it at work is usually where people find it most difficult, and usually where people end up implementing it last. Once they're able to implement it at work, their belief system really begins to change. Now, there's a few reasons why people may find it difficult to implement speech tools and techniques and get their mindset in the right place at work. And one of the main reasons are because of the figureheads that are there, the key people that they have to deal with on a daily basis. And there's different variables that affect people's ability to implement tools and techniques to certain individuals. If it's a colleague, someone on the same level as you, it could be a difficult personality type. That could be one reason. It could be someone who comes across quite intimidating, someone who you perhaps haven't got off on the right foot with, even now, even though you've worked with them for a few months, it's still a difficult personality for you to deal with. And other people can be people that you consider to be of seniority to you. So they could be your line manager. It could be a line manager of a different department that you might aspire to get involved in, and you might be trying to impress them. You're putting a lot of meaning into every conversation you have with them. You're putting yourself under too much pressure. So, or it could be the CEO. So those are a couple of reasons why it can be difficult to implement it at work.
Cool. Thanks, Chris, for that overview. So, kind of like, was that kind of example more about implementing techniques or just managing stuttering in general? Because kind of trying to relate it back to the majority of kind of people who stutter in the UK or the world, there's probably a lot more people who are in kind of the managing column as opposed to the working on the speech column. So what advice would you give for people who aren't currently in kind of like trying to kind of implement techniques and mindset strategies? Is there anything that they can do tomorrow that can make a 5-10% difference?
I think the first thing that everyone should do is to be open and honest about it. I think just trying to push yourself into opening up about it to people next to you, that for me would be the very first step. I think it depends what job they're in. And I'd like to bring AO in on this one because I think AO has recently been in a position where a lot of stutterers would find extremely challenging. So there's people that are in a client-facing role as opposed to working within a company and within a specific team. So there can be different people that you talk to on a daily basis, which can make it even more challenging. So AO, is there anything specific that you did that's not necessarily tool and technique related, but just that little bit that gave you that 5%.
This is just my truth. If you're not proactively working on your speech, you're going to find it very difficult to express yourself in the way or come across in the way you want to. But like you said, Chris, the best way to go is to disclose, be open and honest. And I guess in those cases of people who are not working on their speech, hope the person they're talking to has enough respect and time and patience for them. Now, for me, as I own my own business, I have to take a lot of client calls. I have to find clients. I have to find customers. I make sales calls. And I have to work on my speech. I couldn't do what I'm doing now if I did not have some sort of techniques to manage my stuttering. And even though I have techniques, I sometimes still have to really, really focus and concentrate, because it's more about your mindset than the techniques. The techniques only work if you have the mindset to apply them. So I find it very difficult to really see myself without being a person who's working on my speech to do the things that I can do now. Because before this time, before working on my speech, I could not do what I do now. And that's just the truth.
Cool. Really interesting. Really interesting. So, up until the point when you started to work on your speech, you were kind of, I wouldn't say struggling, but like operating within a fraction of your capabilities, because communication is a massive part of work. Because if you are unable to communicate kind of effectively with your colleagues or people around you, it can impact your job. And I've personally had experiences in the past where that has been a problem, where it could be before picking up phone calls or doing presentations, group exercises, reporting back to the team, it will take a lot longer. I wouldn't be as clear, and as a result, if you aren't able to express yourself effectively, then you do lose that kind of influencing ability within the workplace. And that's the key thing, because quite a lot of people think, oh no, focus on the content, focus on that. It doesn't matter how you say it, but in the end, if you want to influence people and bring them on board, then you have to actually find a way to convey your message in a way they will buy into you. And it's true. You can't beat around the bush, I think. What do you think employers can do more for their employee? So if they are aware that their employee stutters, but they haven't really been open with it, but it's obvious that they do, what do you think they can do to improve their ability to work, perform?
I think the first thing that employers can do is have the conversation with the employee. I think that is the first step, because employers will know that their employee has a stutter. Or they may not know, but from my experience, I would always tell people that I was doing a bit of work for here and there that I had a stutter, and there were things that I struggled with and using the phone.
But is that a risk? Sorry, I'm going to stop you, because is that a risk from the employer side? that that like they would they don't want to step on anyone's toes or kind of like make anyone upset. So would that be a risk for them to actually make the first move? Because they could be
I
wrong.
don't think so.
If they aren't sure, because people, if they're good at hiding it, if they're sometimes fluent, sometimes blocking, but the blocks could be quite bad. But if they seem to be okay on the outside, mood and personality, etc., then do you think that's a risk worth taking for the employer?
Well, employers are entitled to ask, is there anything that I could do to help you? Is there anything that you need? Because if in a year's time, that individual is not performing to how you want them to, and the stutter becomes, it's raised as the reason why, then from an employer's perspective, it could be considered unfair dismissal if you wanted to get rid of that employee because they're not pulling their weight. Now, if you haven't asked the question, how can you give the employee the best opportunity to perform if you're not asking him or her the question? If you're not trying to cater to what they need, then as an employer, you're in a lose-lose, because if that person needs to communicate and that person needs to use the phone, and that person isn't using the phone because of an issue that they're not telling you about, and you decide to sack them in 8 or 9 months, they could do you for unfair dismissal. But if it's recorded that you've given them an opportunity to put forward their issues and you can make adjustments, then it's a win for you and it's a win for them. So now the employee is more comfortable. Now the employee is able to get on with their job in a more comfortable way. And as an employer, you know that you've done everything you can to cater to the individual's needs.
On the back of this question, and this is for both of you, so got a good one in the feed from Leo, who asks, how should you disclose at work? And just to follow up on that, what is the best way to get yourself to feel comfortable and take the fear away from the situation, which is more of a general type question. But going back to the first one, to either of you, how should you disclose at work? And there probably isn't a right or wrong way. There's probably a more effective way depending on your place of employment, but I'm going to hand it over to you guys.
It could go many ways, but the way that I used was I spoke to my boss first, line manager, and then I quickly spoke to my colleagues and told them the truth. And it's important how you disclose. You can't disclose in a way that's very brief and very soft, where you just say, hey, I've got a stutter, and then you walk away. It's not going to work. You have to fully explain how deep your problem is. That is, if you see your stutter as a problem, explain how deep it is, how it affects you in your personal and work life, and just add some meat to the conversation so your colleagues get a clear picture of how you feel about it and how it affects you. You need empathy. You need to show them the empathy about stuttering, and that will help them to understand what is going on and how they can help you.
CJ, have you got anything to add, or maybe an alternative strategy?
I haven't got an alternative, because I personally would speak to your line manager first. I think that would be the first point. And this is after the initial interview stage. So for example, at the interview, I do think it's important to disclose then. But then once you've started in the job, that's when it would be helpful for everyone who works with you to be a little bit more informed on how not they can help you with it, but what they need to be aware of. I think that's the best way to put it. What they need to be aware of, and what potentially what you need in order to carry out your job in the best way possible for yourself.
Cool. Very, very good.
Can I throw that question back at you, Ruben, quickly?
Yeah, sure.
Your point.
Yeah, probably it would depend on the situation, because if hypothetically you were starting a new job, then you have the option of disclosing during the interview process. Some may perceive that as a bigger risk. However, I kind of see it as win-win, right? Because A, you get that off your chest, and B, if you're going to block anyway, you might as well control the narrative. That's what I always believe. So don't let them make assumptions based on the way you speak. You control the narrative and tell them first and explain what's happening, and kind of they will respect you for it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's so true, because I've had an experience, and I think you've had the same experience, Ruben, where you disclosed in an interview and turned your stutter into a strength, where you said because you stutter, you can do X, Y, and Z, and it's made you into a more persistent person. You do public speaking because you have a stutter, you have improved communication, blah, blah, blah. So you could actually turn it into a strength, but only if you, in my opinion, work on your speech.
Just want to clarify, sorry. So when you say work on your speech, do you mean it's only a strength if you're actually, or if you're actively trying to improve your ability to communicate? Or are you saying kind of it's if you disclose, but then you aren't really applying tools and techniques and just disclosing and that's it, then it isn't adding the same value?
Well, in theory, if your stutter has made you a more persistent, stronger person, but you don't work on your speech, well, that's fine, that's great. But from what I've seen in the real life, people who don't work on their speech normally don't have the confidence and the self-esteem to turn the stutter into a strength in an interview. That's what I've seen in real life.
I think the reason why I asked, because I think a few people would be in that boat where they come to a point where they are like confident to be proactive and take that first step to disclose themselves, but not be doing any speech improvement afterwards. And second thing is in the past, I've probably been like that through interviews. So I've disclosed it at the start and got kind of through the interview, but haven't been working on my speech in that period before I kind of embarked on any public speaking journey. So I've kind of like been in all three columns before. The like just go in there and hope for the best. Second one is disclose and hope for the best. And third one is disclose and demonstrate that you are progressing in your communication journey. And they have all kind of had their successes, but I've been mostly successful with the last one, because on the occasions where I didn't get the role, they were purely like professional reasons, as opposed to kind of like speaking performance within the interview. Whereas on the other occasion, especially when I was in the first column, I definitely knew that I probably didn't give myself the best chance, because I would have come across as just some nervous sweatbag, trying to string a few words together and just get out of that interview as soon as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I've got an experience where I went for a job, and I was just like you. I was just hoping for the best, and I was avoiding words. I disclosed. I told them I had a stutter, but it did not help my situation. And I just remember that experience as being one of the worst experiences I've ever had in an interview. So this is why I'm so for working on your speech, because it does really help.
I think what's important though to realize here, guys, is, which you do, but I think the common denominator here is, regardless of whether you're working on your speech or not with tools and techniques, I think what the most important thing is, if you are going to disclose that you have a stutter, it's very important to point out what are the positives as a result of you having a stutter. So if you're going to go in there in an interview, you could, and you haven't got the positives lined up, you haven't got your reasons as to why this is a good thing, you could end up talking your way out of a job. Because if you come across nervous and you come across unsure, and your communication skills are not good, and the secondaries are there, the lack of eye contact, then that person interviewing you, they're not concerned about the stutter. They then begin to think, okay, what is our culture like in this company? How will this individual fit in? How are they going to do the job that they're applying for? But if you have your positives lined up, you're answering the questions for them. You don't need them to question that. So whether you're working on your speech or not, to me personally, it's irrelevant. You have to come with the positives and what you're going to bring to the table. Okay, I have a stutter, but because I've had a stutter, I've developed this, and this, and this is transferable because of this, and this. If you have those prepared, then you have a real good shot. But if you come with the attitude, yeah, I have a stutter, before we start, just want to tell you that I may pause and I may block, then it's not giving the good impression to the interviewer, regardless of your level of fluency at that time.
This is the issue though, right? People who don't work on their speech, what I've seen from my experiences, they don't have the positives there because they are struggling, and that's their real life. They are literally struggling.
Yeah, but I think Ruben will be able to. I think Ruben will be able to combat that.
Yeah, but he's one person that I've met who's like that. He's one.
Which proves that it's possible.
One out of the loads of people I've met. This is the thing. It's a numbers game, right? But I'm talking in general. In general, people who stutter, who don't work on their speech, find it hard to go through that process because they don't have the confidence. They have not seen themselves in that light where they have seen their stutter as a benefit to their life. They don't see the stammering as a benefit. So how can they go to an interview and say, hey, I've got a stutter and I'm killing it? I've never seen that I've never seen anyone apart from Ruben. And I've talked to a lot of people who stutter.
I'm interested to hear from Ruben.
And like the truth is kind of probably somewhere in the middle, because going into interviews in the past, I was not confident, and I didn't have faith in my speech. But what I kind of lacked in confidence, I made up for in persistence, and that's just something that I have. Like I get told sometimes I'm like a petty person, like to a point where we actually in the process of trying to file a claim against like a DJ we inquired with for the wedding, and it's for like £780, and I'm the type of person who would probably spend like £2,000 just to get back that £780, just out of principle, because I'm just a persistent person, and just really petty like that. But so in that same way, like even though I kind of didn't have faith in my speech, I just kind of said, just go to every interview's practice, and at some point it'll click along the way, maybe the 5th one, maybe the 10th one, the 15th one, but you got to keep going, because if you don't, then like that's kind of worse than actually getting rejected. Because at least if you go to one, there's some hope that it will come up. But if you give up completely, then the hope is completely gone. That's the way I personally saw it. So and it was just a numbers game for me. Come on, if you go to 100 interviews, surely one person will take you on, or you get through at least one of those interviews. And that's the way I saw it, just churn it out. And along the way, you start to learn how to do interviews. You start to memorize your own gas. You start to improve your answers and stuff. Now, yeah, pretty much, Chris. As in, you can laugh, but like at the start, you're trying to like put these things together. Then you put them in writing, you rehearse them, go for the next one, keep improving your answers, keep improving your stories and stuff. And
I'll ask you a question, Ruben.
That's it, really, but gone.
So, did you have a why when you was in this journey, this part of your life? Did you have a why as to why you had to stay persistent? Did you have a goal in mind?
Yeah. Because I purely believe that, stuttering was a nuisance, but it didn't impact my social life and kind of personal life proper, as in to an extreme extent. However, I told myself that as soon as it starts to impact your bank balance, so your ability to actually grow economically, your ability to earn income, then is a problem, because it's not a joke. Because that's something that would actually impact you for the rest of your life, severely. As soon as I allowed it to be a problem, economically, then I can't mess about with it anymore, because you can dabble in speech therapies and stuff like that, and go in and out, and etc. But that's why I had to be persistent with all the jobs, because that was why in the end. Because as soon as you stop trying because of stuttering, then it's got you.
Yeah. So
until then, I had to treat it like a joke. I had to treat it. I used to take the piss because I used to be out with my friends or go on dates and stuff and just be stuttering, but it didn't bother me, and that was me kind of spicing it in a weird way, like spiking the speech. But as soon as it starts to impact your ability to earn money, that's its counterattack, right?
Yeah. This brings me to my point of why having a why is so important. And a lot of people who stutter, because they focus so much on the stutter, they don't see the bigger picture, or they don't see what's beyond the stutter, like their life, like what the big picture. They don't see the consequences of not doing something about the stutter, or they do, but they just don't believe they can do. And that's the difference between, I guess, you and most people who do have a speech impediment, they are not feeling, in my opinion, enough pain to actually, or yeah, I guess so. We're not feeling enough pain to actually take the course of action they need to actually change their speech and then their life. But because you saw it as a real problem, you did something, and that's the difference. You did something.
What I compare it to is a car. So you can, as in, like in school and stuff, when you when everyone's passing their driving tests and everything, and talking about cars and getting a fast car and all that kind of stuff. When you have a car and it's not working, yeah, then there's a problem, right? So you want to try to fix the car. But what if you're trying to fix the car, but you don't really have anywhere to drive to? Do you have that same kind of like urgency to fix the car, or just that same? Because if like, say for example, the place you have to drive to is like life and death, so important, then you're going to get your car fixed ASAP and get driving. But if you don't, then then you don't have that same edge. You don't have that same thing, because you just kind of you feel down about the car, as opposed to where you're trying to go to get it. And in the end, it's just the car, isn't it?
This goes way beyond speech. I think this goes into life. If you don't have a purpose in life, you're just going to drift, and life will put you where life wants to put you. If you don't have the courage to tell life what you want and take 100% responsibility for all of your choices or your actions, life will put you where life wants to put you, or another human being will put you where he or she wants to put you. And it goes way beyond speech, but that was a perfect response, bro.
I'm going to ask you though, like, do you think it has to go as far as purpose, or can it just be like something basic, just like providing for your family? Or
that is a purpose, right? That's a purpose. Do you want to provide for your family? A goal, a purpose, a dream, it's all the same to me.
But when people think about purposes, they may kind of perceive something like a bit more grander, like on kind of a bigger scale, if that makes sense. And maybe that's why like it doesn't hit home, because there's a lot of talk about kind of like finding purpose and like be woke and do this and do that, etc. However, if you can't kind of find purpose within your immediate life, within your family, within your friend circle, and just find purpose within kind of what you're doing now, then how can you go out and try to change the world?
Yeah. Like for me, the only reason why I started to work on my speech is because I hated my job, and I hated to imagine what the 10 years of my life would be like if I did not do something about my stutter. So my goal was to start a business and earn lots of money and help people. And that was my why. So, or goal, or purpose, or dream. If you don't have a good enough reason to do something, you're not gonna do nothing.
Boom. CJ, you've been quiet, dude. What's troubling your mind?
Nothing's troubling my mind. I was just sitting back thinking, if I heard what Ruben has just said at 20 or 21 years old, if I had that drummed into me, my life could have been so much different. Could have been so much different. I needed that at 20 or 21 years old. I was that person that wasn't interested in the numbers game. I didn't want to do 100 interviews. I wanted to do one, and I wanted to smash one. And I felt like my speech was never going to allow me to smash one. So I was never going to get the opportunity to do the second, the third, the fourth. So I gave up on myself, and I struggled to find that purpose that AO was describing. I struggled to find that motivation because I accepted that getting an income and making money was something that was always going to be a massive struggle for me. I accepted that at a young age. I knew that, well, at the time, I felt like I knew I wasn't employable. That's how I felt at the time. And what motivated me, different to AO. So AO got his job, didn't like his job, wasn't happy, and that was his motivation to work on his speech. With me, I started a business and I realized, wow, I'm onto something here. This is actually working. I can't lose this opportunity now. And my stutter is the only thing that is going to cause me to lose this opportunity. So you have to sort this out now. So that was my why. And because I was able to work on my speech with something that I was enjoying, something that I loved at that time, my belief system was just changing every day. And I was getting more and more motivated. And the why was just increasing every day. So yeah, I kind of found my why the complete opposite to AO, but it just goes to show that as long as you find your why, the motivation's there.
Well said, Chris. Well said. Applying that to just day-to-day work, how can someone who doesn't have their why, what can they do to motivate themselves? So if in AO's case, that he actually wanted to change jobs, but say if someone's scared to actually change jobs for different reasons, because they provide for their family financially, so they can't take that risk and all the different things. What advice do you have there? Because there again, it comes into like different things affect it now, because it isn't just stuttering, job, find purpose, because so many other things play into it, and some are out of your control as well, but still impact your speech. So what can you do in that situation?
The advice that I would give would be to find people who are where you want to be. You just have to find people who are where you want to be and talk to them, get advice, become their friends, do whatever it takes, because that's the only way you're gonna find your inspiration to actually eventually take the steps. If you listen to people who are in the same situation as you, which I'm guessing is bad, that's not going to help you. You need to change your environment. You need to literally change your environment and seek out people who are a couple steps ahead of you. That's what I've done, and that's what I continue to do, and it's why I spend a lot of time with Ruben and Chris and a few other people, because we are all on similar journeys and we all have big whys and goals, and that's the only way you're going to progress. If you progress with people, you can't progress in this life by yourself. You're going to find it very difficult. So again, I would just seek out people who are a couple steps ahead of you, or people who have a similar plan as you, who are on the same type of mindset.
I would say if you're unaware of what that person looks like and you're not sure which path you want to take, you are in that job, that you're comfortable in it, it allows you to provide for your family and you don't really want to risk it and jump ship. What I would advise is you may not want to explore other options because you feel like your level of fluency or your speech at that time won't allow you to. And how I would reframe it in my mind is that by working on my speech, it gives me more options. Just like having money may not be the greatest thing in the world, but it gives you options. Having a good speech that you're comfortable with. So we're not talking about level of fluency here. We're talking about what you're comfortable with. That allows you more options to explore. So you may not love your job. You may not know which other job you would prefer, but that gives you the opportunity to go and try, to go and discover, to go on a different journey and head up another path, because you're still in yourself, your self-esteem's still there, and you still feel like you are employable. Usually, I know me, for example, I felt like my speech was a massive block and I'd be lucky to get any job. And if I did ever get that job, I'd be lucky to hold on to it. So don't even consider any other move. So I would use that, putting myself in a position to have options as the motivation.
Thank you very much, Chris. I just want to quickly turn our attention back to our lovely Facebook feed. So we got a brilliant comment from Leo who says, my experience now is that I got through an interview really good. I'm proud to advertise. And I was doing that for the first 3 months in that job. But then something happened and kind of stopped doing those basic things that helped him get through the interview and the job itself. And he's kind of having a bit of struggling speech right now and feeling a bit of resistance to Disclose. But he doesn't know like what he needs to do, and he is addressing it. But his well-being is being impacted at work. But from kind of my experiences with Leo, it's kind of purely application, because he has proven to himself that he can do it. And that's one of the other messages that we need to share. It's like, focus on your achievements, your successes in the past, because that will take you through the rough times. Because if you know deep down that you can do it and you have done it before, it does make it easier to keep working and keep striving for that target, because you have achieved it. You need to pick yourself up again and bring yourself to that point one more time. And just keep going, because like I said before, the worst thing you can do is stop. The worst thing you can do is stop.
One more thing, just to be direct, if like the question you said, if someone's in a job and they wish to move, but they feel like their speech is the problem, is that the question? When the truth is, mate, you have to do something about your speech. A lot of people like to bite around the bush, but if you know that your speech is the main reason why you're not taking the steps you need to provide more for yourself, more for your family, that is your why. You have to take personal responsibility and take the risk and seek out help. Like I said, find people who are 3 steps ahead of you, people you trust, people who you think can help you, and ask for their help. If you don't ask, you don't get. And if you complain, that's your problem. You need to do something.
Cool, thank you very much, Ayo. And I think we are at a good time now to wrap up this podcast, as I think we've covered a range of cool things, and some from like day-to-day aspects of the stuttering at work to a few more deeper things. If you need any career advice, you can speak to either one of us, and we'll try to help you change jobs if that's what you want to do. And if your employers are on Facebook as well, listening to this podcast, don't worry, we will not share that information, promise. CJ, any last words before we step outside and enjoy the sun for a bit now, because it is fairly bright. Well, Ayo is already enjoying the sun, but any last words from you, Chris?
Not really, to be honest. Just a great podcast. A lot of good tips in there. work related, job interview related, that can be applied almost immediately.
Cool. And AO, want to add anything else to that brilliant finale you delivered?
You're not alone. You're not alone. And if you're struggling, you hear me now?
Sorry, go on. Yeah. Sure.
Yes. So you're not alone. No one's alone in this world. And if you need help, just ask. Ask for support. Just ask.
And ask the right people as well.
Yeah, that's the most important. Not your friends.
Thing. There's so much misinformation out there.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
be careful. Do your research before you ask. Do your research. But guys, thank you very much as always. This has been a really good episode. Very topical, very applicable. And I hope it was entertaining as well, as we do try our best. And yeah, I've had a good time today, actually. I feel buzzing, ready for the rest of the evening. Got a lot of work to do, but that's what I signed up for, Chris. I'm gonna pass over to Chris in the studio to wrap this one up. CJ, it is all yours.
Cheers, Ruben. This is SHB Unfiltered Podcast, episode 47, Stuttering at Work. I am Chris Jackson. I've been joined by Ruben Pillai and Ao Adesanya. Thank you very much for tuning in. And remember, stop holding back.